Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Silver Tempest, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. For today's video, we're going to be talking Cube, because the Champions Cube has come around once again. It's a tournament that I really enjoy participating in, and there's a really interesting twist this time around where we're drafting two different cubes, if I go far enough in the tournament at least. So today I'm going to be drafting the RSPK cube. It was the second most highly voted cube by the players within the Champions draft itself. This is an invite-only tournament, and you earn your invite by placing well in the respective tournaments in the Discord. I actually had an automatic invite for getting top 4 at the previous Champions Cube, so I've not been playing a huge amount. I've just been doing the Team Cube, really. That's about it. But the first cube on the list is going to be RSPK, which is obviously Gen 3, and we're going to be looking over that cube in great detail. And then those who have 2 wins on the first day of competition carry over to the second day, where we will draft all over again with just 8 players together. And it's going to be a League-verse cube, which is a really interesting cube that we've just played recently as well on the Discord. So we should all have good insight into what's good there, and that's made by Odysseus. So yeah, you can follow along at the P3 podcast on Twitch. I think they'll be following some drafters, and they'll also be following the gameplay as well with commentary of the games, which is pretty exciting stuff. So here is the schedule as well, just if you want to take a look at it anytime throughout the day. These times are all in CST, so I'm starting at 3 in the afternoon and going on until late, but happy to do it for the sake of Cube. And yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because it's only 3 rounds for 1 day of competition, I guess, but it's still pretty sizable in the amount of time it takes for the draft itself, etc. But yeah, that's what they've gone for this time around. So let's start off with Davi's RS to PK cube. I have played this at least a couple times now, and it is a popular one from the Discord, and it literally just encompasses kind of a best of the EX era, which is really cool. What I do like about this cube is that the Pokemon are all very well balanced, of course. They were built in this time capsule together, so they naturally balance quite easily. And it is, like I said, that sort of best of, so there's a lot of cards that will be recognizable for those of you who ever played in Gen 3, or even just are history buffs and like your Gen 3 cards. What I don't like about this cube is that the archetypes that we know have been strong are sort of like set already. We know that like Blaziken would love to go alongside like Delcatty, Magneton, and that sort of thing, just because of the synergies they have naturally, and that doesn't really change based on it being in cube. So there's a lot of things that will rely on the Delcatty Magneton engine. I think it works really well for Blaziken, Swampert, Flygon to an extent. This Delta Dragonite could definitely use it. Even Metagross to an extent. All of these sorts of things would love having this same engine imported. There are a few other decks that could use other engines, like Nidoqueen to search out a ton of Pokemon, Fearow for Delta species Pokemon could be pretty important. This Metagross can be card draw as well. I think that is a big important factor in the cube, just getting your hands on some of this draw. There's one sharing Milotic, so that's obviously a big deal. But yeah, I think the best way to draft this cube actually is to tunnel vision quite a lot, which I don't think is super interesting necessarily, because I do think, although you can cherry pick pieces from certain lines, I think it really makes sense to lock into something early to make the most powerful deck possible. What I do like, though, is whatever line you do sort of go down in terms of evolution lines, they're all, like I said, balanced and can work on their own right. The things that we do really need to bear in mind is there's a lot of strength in the Stadium War and also the Tool War, with so many Cess Crystals, so many Ruins, Crystal Beach, Curse Stones. These sorts of cards are super important. Battle Frontier to an extent as well. So really highly prioritizing Windstorms down here, your own Stadium cards, even if they don't grant much value, they're all really important to you as well. So it is very much going to be trying to get a good engine going. If it's going to be P2 for basically any deck, or it's going to be Delcatty Magneton, definitely better in some decks, but can pretty much go in any archetype. I think it would only really be like a Magma deck where I wouldn't look to get any sort of engine, where we're just trying to get the accompanying Magma pieces along the way. the Camerupt and the Claydol going alongside that for acceleration, but pretty much everything else wants a good chunk of draw. But just quickly for the Crobat, bit of a disruptive line. I think the EX is actually really strong because it has a free retreat and can add extra counters to things. Its attacks are also just relatively solid. The cross attack, it is flipping coins, but it can confuse on 2 heads flips of 4, which is really, really annoying. Confusion text can be a huge issue in this format, so that's really big. Obviously, status conditions oftentimes shut down powers as well, which is huge. Blaziken is pretty much the old classic accelerate and smack with the EX. Same thing for Swampert, really. Just set up and smack is kind of the idea. The Delta Pidgeot, really, really strong card in this cube. We actually get given Holland Energy. We get given 2 of each of the Holland Energy, which is actually pretty huge, to be honest with you, because it makes making the Pidgeot work substantially easier. So yeah, seems very easy to get that going, and it's like a Garbodor, but only Delta species abilities work. So there's not only Cess Crystal, but also potential like Garb, I guess, is going to be important. The Holland Energies themselves all have interesting text, like Psychic types can give themselves free retreat, Lightning types can gain. This is obviously the basic energy, of course, not just the physical type of Pokemon, but if you're using these types of basic energy in your deck, you can reduce 10 to your lightning stuff, which is kind of nice. Fire can remove its weakness, which is huge. Fighting can remove resistance, which is actually big on a number of Pokemon here. Lots of relevant -30 text on some fighting types, and there's stuff like Dark Titar, Nidoqueen, Hariyama, even Exeggutor. These are some of the, and Magma's Groudon. These are some of the most aggressive attacking mons. So being given 2 Holland Energy is really huge, so that we're not just getting wrecked by resistance on like a lot of these sorts of things. Like Flygon is a big one, for example. Even some of the basic EXs down here, like Rayquaza EX, that can easily go into the Blaziken deck, for example. These sorts of things. The Lugia can, we have Castform and lots of acceleration, lots of ways you can try and get to the big Lugia EX off. So really important that we get those Holland Energies, not just to make the Pidgeot easier to work, but just in general. So I am looking out for Pidgeot. I think alongside Cess Crystal, this is a really, really powerful effect. Does make me want to try and build some sort of Delta box as well, whether it's alongside like Dragonite, Nidoqueen, Metagross. These are all like classic combo pieces that can go alongside each other. Flygon as well, just another great accelerator. So yeah, the Pidgeot is definitely a selling point to some extent. Ampharos, bit of a just helpful line as well for augmenting damage, can come in and do good damage itself, because we also get special darks for free, so that's huge. Metagross, pretty good accelerator, not a bad tempo attacker either. That 2 for 70, as long as they only have 2 energy attached, is really good. Well, you have to match up the energy, so you can commit more energy just to make sure Link Blast is doing 70, but it's not too bad, and it can also accelerate special metal from the discard pile, which can be really helpful as well. You are putting counters on your stuff, but you kind of offset it with special metal. That's the deck I built last time. When I drafted this, I had a Metagross Nidoqueen deck, and it was kind of strong. I think I just didn't draft enough like Windstorms from my memory, so that's something I'm definitely going to try and fix and prioritize a lot more this time around. This Metagross can do some huge one-hit KO damage and is a good draw. Dark Titar, very scary for some decks with that sand damage chipping in, and Second Strike also just really good damage, especially when you can stack special darks on top of this, which is really huge. Exeggutor, really nice tempo stage 1. I think Right Eggs was definitely a tempo stage 1 deck in the past. If you want to go bigger and build towards like Exeggutor Pidgeot with Nidoqueen, maybe that could be a thing as well. Maybe even Flygon, these sorts of things. So that's pretty exciting if you want to try and work towards Delta Circle being your beat stick potential. Dark Dragonite, a classic combo with Dark Electrode, accelerate and move the energies around, which is obviously very, very strong. And also the regular EX is just a bit of a standalone good card, where it has Trainer Lock, and the Dragon's Roar is actually a really, really powerful attack, where you can over knock out things and actually use those counters around the board, which is super flexible, and this has no weakness either, so that's obviously a difficult card to get through. The Delta Dragonite also very strong at accelerating. Both Nidoqueens very, very good. I think they work well together as well, because you want to power up your Power Lariat by having lots of evolutions in play. Nidoqueen helps you get there, and Vengeance is a nice like backup attack, so this is just a very strong line in general. I also really like that you get Look for Friends on Nidoran and Fast Evolution on Nidorina. Both these are really good attacks for an evolution line, and not many other Pokemon have good like evolution line Pokemon. They have little bits here and there. I know that the Beldum is very strong. And I think that's really it. There really aren't much exciting things going on. Like, there's some annoying Golbats, but nothing too scary. So just having good basics from the Nidorino line and having good basics from Beldum, that was something I actually picked up on when I chose to play Nidoqueen Metagross the first time around. Yeah, that's also a big thing to bear in mind, where your little stuff actually sits around on board a lot more in this format. So actually looking at those little basic texts is actually really important. Flygon, very, very good energy acceleration with its poker power, but this is of course an EX Pokemon, but it does boast some of the highest damage output available to it, where you can be Dragon Clawing quite nicely, especially with chaining this as much as possible to get that acceleration. Trying to use like boost energy and stuff can be a really big deal for slamming with your Flygon. Again, the other Delta Supply Flygon, not really a great beat stick, but just a very good accelerator to your Delta Species Mons. It can be basic energy as well as the thingy. We've got a mini EV package. Basically, all of these are really, really good cards, so it wouldn't be bad to pick up one of these EVs just as a speculative choice, because you can get value definitely from, I think, Espeon, Jolteon, Umbreon are huge. Vaporeon and Flareon can both come in at times, but I think those would be my top 3 picks. Blossom, just for some healing, actually super relevant in this format, so wouldn't go amiss. Arcanine, very high tempo card. We don't have React Energy in the draft, so you can't really chain this Flame Swirl, but honestly, Overrun is just really, really good pressure that you can put on early, and 120 hit points that early is really good. Gorbis, bit of a weird one. I think it just goes alongside the Metagross mostly. Maybe you can try and work in like an aggro stage 1 deck with like possibly Claydol, Camerupt as a combo. I don't think this is necessarily all that strong, though. I wouldn't expect many people to be locking into this. I expect those to be wheeling. Fearow, very good for the Delta stuff. We've already talked about Magma a bit. Hariyama, actually a really annoying card with that body stopping stadiums. So again, makes Windstorm even higher of a priority, I guess you could say. So that you have more than just stadium bounce stadiums. You have other things as well. This is a really high tempo card as well. Knock off really scary text. Discarding a random card from your opponent's hand at times, which is obviously very huge when we have lots of important like one-offs that you don't really want to get rid of. Even Fake Out is just good tempo and can paralyze, which is great. Banette, really, really strong. Stage 1, again, we have the Holland Psychic Energy. Or, well, if we have a Psychic Energy attached and a Holland, we can just freely retreat between our EX, and we can Shady Move much more nicely. Similar to the Crobat, but this is obviously on a more aggressive stage 1 with that Shadow Chant being a like late game sweep attack, I guess, in some instances. And yeah, playing around with counters is just kind of busted. Raichu, good spread. Mon, very scary. Metallic Thunder also can be big. This feels like it's a small card, but just adding special metals onto it makes it kind of bulky, so you just zap around the board like loads, which is very scary. P2, Delcatty, these are all super important Pokemon. Tons of Hollow Mons in here as well, which is great. Lots of Dunsparce, some Apoms, lots of Jirachis. We've got the Make-A-Wish Jirachi as well as the Wishing Star. So lots of good basics to help set us up and get us into the game. Some very powerful basics that can weave into some decks. Some beat stick potential. The Zangoose obviously helping out the Groudon. Lantern can be a pretty nice card. Again, just that 90 that sort of self-accelerates because it's inbuilt. EXP share is very solid. Manectric can go alongside Blaziken. Not sure what else this really goes alongside. Although it's a reasonable card in its own right. Thunderspark, not too bad. Both Milotics are really strong, so anytime I see a Feebas, good thing to speculate on. Definitely speculating on Porygon, speculate on Feebas. Speculate on probably an Eevee would be a good speculation. The Voltorb package is kind of low as well, so you really have to lock into these things quite quickly if you really want them. So that's something to bear in mind. But yeah, like I said, the Pokemon all fairly well balanced. Cacturne not bad either, just an efficient stage 1. Has a little bit of disruption in here with confusion and whatnot. Like I was saying with the Crobat again, can be pretty handy. So basically anything you play are good, but it's really down to how many disruption tools you get and how much defense to disruption tools you also get. Because I feel like aggressive basics or aggressive stage 1s that get that early cess established can be a huge problem for stuff. And it's really down to how your opponent reacts to that. The Holland engine's obviously a huge deal here, lots of transceivers. But it wouldn't be wrong to play like 4 of this card. It really would be still very strong. Yeah, a good amount of search here going on. Briny is definitely a strong power spike card, lots of admins. Admin's not necessarily all that strong in this format because there are so many engine mons, but I guess if you're a deck that plays an element of spread and disruption, or if you have those CES crystals or whatever, you can try and get the admin working. So yeah, really nice cube. Looking forward to playing it again. I think the last time I did this, I got pretty ambitious with my evolution lines and just sort of didn't have any disruption. I think that was kind of like a bit of an imbalance that I need to fix next time around. But yeah, I'm pretty happy locking into lots of different things here. So I'm not going in. There's definitely cubes where I'm like, I want to be playing this, and I don't really think I have that this time. I'm pretty happy playing all sorts. So let's have a quick chat about the Leagueverse cube, which is hopefully a cube that I get to play. It means I probably have to win 2 games today. At least the last time I played this, I built a very, very strong deck as well for the team cube. It was based around Jungle Totem and Venusaur. That was kind of the whole idea, and it was such a strong deck. It was just really, really consistent at what it was doing. And there was some really unfair stadium cards that I took advantage of. I had Skuntank Verbank, which was disgusting. I had Turfield, and I had Life Forest, which may have been cut from the cube. Yeah, I think it's been cut because it was super duper unfair. That stadium did not belong in the cube. It was a way to get essentially a free turn off of opponents. It was just disgusting. So yeah, they've actually nerfed it since I played this, and this was literally just a couple of weeks ago that I played this cube, so clearly someone's taking notes that Life Forest is just the most disgusting card, and I basically just took advantage of that, honestly. Had some other backups like Shaman, which is good. Empoleon, just a very solid line. Blaziken, kind of weird as well. There's a lot of funky rules in this cube as well, in terms of like what's a 2-prizer and other stuff, so it's a whole thing to learn, and I'll have to do that tonight if I end up doing well enough in the cube. But yeah, I think there are still cards that are completely out of balance in this cube. So it doesn't really matter what evolution line I go again. I feel like there's going to be some power spike like trainer cards that's really going to be the difference this time around that lets me do well. Because like I said, I found Life Forest last time. I'm certain there's more cards that are like completely breakable and just not fair in this cube. So I should be able to find something to manipulate and just ride off the back of that. Because I think this hasn't been perfectly balanced yet, to be honest with you. Davi's cube seems much more balanced than this one. So I just need to find the exploits for this cube before tomorrow to do well with it. So yeah, that's the Cube League. Like I said, the P3 podcast is the Twitch channel to go on. We're going to be following along with gameplay, going to be following along with the drafts itself, and it should be pretty well commentated throughout. So I hope you enjoyed, and hope you tune in to some of the cube action. I'll try and record my own draft as well to see if anyone really cares about that. But yeah, I will see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.